Welcome back to the Forensics Detailing channel. Today we are reviewing the new FLEX cordless machine polishers with the FLEX PE150 Rotary polisher and the FLEX XFE15 150 long throw dual action polisher. Let's get stuck into it. Okay guys, so we're reviewing these two very sexy looking cordless battery powered machine polishers. Now we have a rotary offering and a dual action offering. I believe in the rotary world there's one other cordless offering out there from one other provider, and with the dual action polishers this is the first one to market and it's completely unique. Will there be others following suit? Well, I think it's a difficult thing to build a machine like this, and I'm not so sure you're going to see many other companies offering these corded versions. So I don't know on that. It's just a little bit of thoughts for you. But we've got a hell of a lot of information to get through, and I know there's going to be a lot of questions around batteries and stuff like that. First thing I want to do is cover the basic specs of what you're getting when you go and buy these tools and what the options are and all that sort of stuff. Fly through that quickly and then get into the real meat and veg of sort of the performance of these power tools. The first thing to understand about these two offerings of cordless tools is that it looks like they're going to come in three different packages, if you like. A tool only package that just comes with the tool in the box and the plate. Then a standard package which most people are going to be selling and most people are going to be buying, which comes with the tool and some plates and the batteries basically and the charger, so you're ready to go. And then as always a sort of deluxe offering where as well as the tool and the batteries and the plates you get some pads and polishes and sort of microfiber and stuff like that. So at the time I shoot this video virtually most of the distributors are selling that middle package of the tool and the batteries, and I think one or two might be selling the tool only option. So let's just talk about the prices for the standard kind of package with the batteries and the plates. So we start with the PE150. What you get generally in the standard kit with this is obviously the tool itself. You get a 150mm backing plate, so that's kind of like supporting the larger size pads. You get a handle, a stick handle that you can put on either side of the tool. You get two 5-amp batteries. So one thing that's very important to understand is there's two supported batteries that FLEX offer for this. The 5-amp big heavier battery and the 2.5-amp smaller lighter battery. In the kit you get two of the bigger 5-amp batteries. You get one charger device that I'll overlay that you use to charge them, and it gives you the time of the charge so that you know how long it's going to take, and we're going to talk about all that charge timing and everything later on. You also get a very nice durable hard plastic case and box to keep the tool in plenty of space to get some other gear in as well. It's quite a nice box. How much does that lot cost you? Well, typically it's just about below £600 for that machine. The prices will vary, and I will give you 3 links in the description for all of the guys that I know that sell it, and I've got discount codes with John from Clean and Shiny sells it, Imran from Into Detailing sells it, and Joe I think sells the FLEX stuff from Auto Glands. So I'll link all 3 of those in and you can shop them around with discount codes. And the 10% discount code on this tool is critical because it's quite a big discount, isn't it? It's nearly 60 quid. So there you go. That is the basic specs of the PE150. The XFE15 150. This standard offering with the batteries comes with the tool itself, 125mm plate and also 150mm plate, so you get 2 plates with the dual action polisher. Again, the 2 5-amp batteries, the charger and a carrier case, and the price is roughly the same. It's just going to be below £600, and I'll give you the 3 links of the distributors I know that are selling the tool. That is the basic kind of kit that you are getting with these. Right, first up guys, I want to go through the basic specifications of these tools. Now let's just talk about battery weight. The heavy 5-amp battery comes in at around about 0.72 kilos, so just, you know, less than a kilo, and this one comes in at 0.42 kilos, so it's sort of just over half the weight of the larger battery. What are the tool weights? So overall, both machines are listed as 2.84 kilos. When I weighed them, the Rotary came in at 2.85 kilos, 0.1 of a kilo heavier, which is not much. It could have had a different plate on it or something. So essentially they're right on there. So 2.85 kilos for me with the heavier battery, and if you put the lighter battery on it, it's 2.54 kilos. The XFE15 150 listed as 2.84 with the heavy battery on it. When I measured it, it weighed 2.81 with the bigger battery and 2.52 with the smaller battery. So the weights of these two machines are very, very similar, with this one being slightly lighter, the XFE being slightly lighter, which is unusual. It's a bit smaller. Worth noting that that weight for a battery operated tool is pretty impressive. It's lighter than my corded kind of DeWalt. You know, most of these Rotaries can weigh up sort of around 3 kilos. So for a battery operated tool, the weights of both of these machines are fantastic. We do have to cover the issue of balance, because obviously you're going to have that 0.7 kilos on the end of the machine that you haven't had before. So we'll cover that a little bit later on. That's the weights with the battery. The next things are these the operating speeds, which are really important, and there's a difference with these power tools, and we'll talk about it later on. So the FLEX PE150, the speed range is 900 RPMs up to 1450 RPMs. So that's a smaller window than its corded brother, which I think starts at 600 and goes up to 2100. So that's interesting. You still, for me, I don't really polish above 1450 on 125mm or 150mm plates, but having that speed capability there is quite nice if you were to move the plates down a little bit smaller, which I'm not sure if you're supposed to do. I'm not sure if they're supported on that, but you can do it. Trust me on that. Now the speed range on the XFE dual action free spinning polisher is listed as 4,600 through to 7,600. No load OPM speed, and I'm not sure why, but with Flex you have to halve all of that to get the real OPM as we understand it. So the real speed range of the XFE is 2,300 RPMs up to 3,800 RPMs, and we'll talk a little bit later on about, again, that's a smaller window and how it compares to some of the other tools on the market. As I've said before, this tool comes with 125 and 50mm plate. This one comes with just 150mm plate. So that's something that's a little bit different. The XFE, of course, has a 15mm offset on it, so it's a long throw polisher to give you kind of a little bit more capability than the smaller throws in how it cuts. Basically, you can get a bit more scrub with that larger offset. So it's a long throw cordless polisher. They of course operate on these 18-volt batteries that run these lithium-ion batteries that are very sophisticated. Flex make them themselves. Heard all sorts of clever things. There's a very good review of this on the Pro Detailers website from Ian and Bert. And I spoke to Richard, the guy at Flex, about these batteries and the gel lining in them that they use to maintain temperature and that. They are quite expensive things. You can buy them individually. I think they're about 95 quid for the 5 amp batteries and about 65 quid for the little batteries. We'll talk a little bit more about these batteries in a second. That was the basic stuff I wanted to get across the tool. Now let's run through all the different things that you would measure these tools on and talk about them. Okay guys, so we've covered weight, spec and price. We also need to go through and cover noise and vibration, battery life when you're working it, recharge times, general ergonomics and kind of build quality, and balancing the tool with the battery on there. How much of an issue is that? That's the main things we're going to walk through now, and then I'm going to go through a whole load of notes that I've made about all of the considerations with these tools, which are the important things. So let's crack on through this, guys. First thing, noise and vibration. Now, obviously with rotary polishers, they don't have the level of vibration that the dual action polishers have, because there's no offset, so there's no wobble to counterbalance and all that sort of stuff. So rotaries are generally as smooth as a whistle. And the FLEX PE150 and 150 corded rotary was one of the smoothest polishers I've ever used. And they've captured that in this particular tool. All of them are brushless as well in this corded range, so you have less maintenance and you don't have to worry about replacing the brushes on them, which seems to be the way to go. And this rotary polisher is absolutely as smooth as a whistle. The vibration levels, even at top whack, are fantastic. I've got it on full speed here, full speed 6, and I fire it up, and there is just virtually no vibration running through your hands at all, and it's the same when you've got the thing on the panel and you're using it. So it's a very smooth tool. It has a slight whistle noise to it, but the noise levels on these tools are lower at top speed than their corded counterparts, and I don't know if that's just because they don't run potentially as fast, but they're very relatively quiet machines. Next up, noise and vibration on the XFE15 dual action polisher. I think they've made some improvements here, some quite big improvements. One sort of criticism I had in my video of the corded version of this tool was that at top whack the vibration levels were getting what I described as intrusive. Down at 4 or 5 they weren't too bad, but there was a sort of like a bit of a funny noise, and it wasn't. There's something else I need to talk about in a little bit about the counterweight system, but with that corded tool, I remember that as the plate slowed down, you know, when you sort of finish your set, you take the power off, it would just make a sort of noise as this plate rubbed over the interface on the shroud. I think they might have made some changes here, because the plate just seems to spin a bit freer and it doesn't make that little noise that the other one made. I also think from memory that they might have put a rubber kind of section of the shroud which interfaces with the free spinning plate, and from memory I think that was a harder plastic on the other tool. Could be wrong on that, could be wrong, but I'm just thinking out loud, so don't shoot me down if I am wrong. But either way, this tool feels noticeably smoother to me than the corded version. The corded version, if you cracked it up to full whack, speed 6, and obviously if this could go that faster there'd be more vibration, but with the corded version there was quite a lot of vibration at that speed and it just felt too fast. Down at 4 and 5 it was a little bit more manageable. This tool feels a lot smoother with less vibrations even at full whack, and I don't get that funny noise that the plate was making against the shroud. There's three little recessed copper bolts in here, and I thought it was those kind of just clipping the plastic shroud that were making a noise. So they might have made some little tweaks. Whatever they've done, this tool is really, really smooth. Perhaps the smoothest long throw dual action polisher I've used to date, which is quite impressive for the cordless version. And I'd be interested to know if they've made those little design tweaks or improvements or iterations, which does happen with tooling, especially ones that are new to market. Be interested to know if they've put those iterations through on the corded version of it, because it seems to be spinning a lot freer. Not with regards to the tendency to stall, but just with the tendency for it to make a noise. You know, it just feels, and vibration, it just feels like it's a slightly smoother tool. So good job on that particular front. Next up I want to talk about run times when you've got a full charge in either the 5 amp big battery or the 2.5 amp little battery for both tools. Now Flex advise, or they've got it's always going to be a guess depending on how you're operating the tool, but Flex advise a 40 to 50 minute run time on the XFE, so the dual action polisher, and a 30 to 40 minute run time on the PE, on the Rotary, and around an 18 minute run time if you're using the smaller battery. So I thought I'd do some just simple no load tests of how long I could get out of this, just running it continually till the thing shuts down. Let's go through that. On top whack, so speed 6, the XFE with the 5 amp battery, I ran it for 57 minutes and 40 seconds. So it's kind of longer than they stated, but that's running freely. With the large battery, and with the small battery, I run it for 30 minutes, 45 till the battery ran out and it shuts down. With the PE and the large battery, I ran it for 1 hour and 8 minutes and 11 seconds before the battery ran. So the Rotary actually ran longer than Flex advise. We'll talk about that in a second. And on the little battery, it ran for 37 minutes and 34 seconds before it cut out. So why are Flex saying you're going to get 30 to 40 minutes with this and longer on this when it was the other way around? Well, I think with the Rotary being fixed rotation, when you're when you have that machine in and you're polishing it, you're drawing more power as you kind of use pressure and slow that plate down and stuff like that. With the free spinning dual action polisher, it's kind of lightly whizzing over the surface. You kind of use them with less pressure when it's not a fixed rotation device, so you're probably not drawing as much power, I'm guessing. So, but from the tests I did, I could run the Rotary you know, with no load for longer than the XFE. Next thing is charge times on the batteries. Very important. Flex advised 45 minutes to recharge the big 5 amp and 30 minutes to fully charge the little 2.5 amp battery when they're fully discharged. It's a full charge. When you put these into the recharge machine, the first thing it tells you, it gives you a countdown of how long it's going to take. It said 48 minutes for the large battery, and I timed it and it took 48:02. So it's 8 minutes, or no, sorry, 3 minutes longer than stated. The little battery took 38 minutes to fully charge, and it stated 30, so that's 8 minutes over. The only one thing I'm not too sure about is it's very hot at the moment, very humid in here, probably about 30 degrees. And I don't know if that's affecting the charge time slightly, but I would say this one's 3 minutes over the stated charge time, and this one's 8 minutes. So conclusions of that is that the little one takes a little bit longer to charge from these tests than Flex have stated, but like I say, I've got different conditions here. We'll talk a little bit more about the importance of charge time versus working times and what you need in terms of batteries, because you don't want to ever be in the situation where you're waiting for batteries to charge in this business, do you? So that's important. That is run times and charge times covered. Next thing is I want to talk about the ergonomics, and this is where Flex always excel. The ergonomics of their tool are fantastic. They're always compact, well made, solid, nice to handle, you know, lightweight and all that sort of stuff. Now again with Flex, the business end where you're kind of holding the tool all of the time up here is really nice with this soft integrated bowl with a really nice big recess to get your fingers over. You won't have any problems holding this tool or dropping it or anything like that. You know, you generally don't, but the ergonomics of this part of it are absolutely flawless. There's some other improvements as well. The speed dial on both of these tools, it's actually accessible now on both sides, so it's like a complete circle, which means you'll always be able to generally see what speed you're on a little bit easier, which is a nice touch. They're designed primarily for right-handed people because they don't have the trigger locks on both sides. None of them do. So you're really going to be firing up and putting the trigger lock on there. The triggers on them are lovely. Kind of progressive triggers rather than like an on-off kind of full power thing. So most of the, and the handle as well, it's worth saying, is rubberized as well, so you get a good grip on that. The ergonomics are lovely on this tool. There are some slight compromises with the ergonomics, that they've got a whack a battery on the end of it. Now, it's got to really go on the end, doesn't it? You're not going to be able to stick it up there because it's going to put too much weight on the pads and affect the machines. We're going to talk a little bit about the batteries later on, but the battery really has to go on the end of the tool. The handle of the tool is completely straight on both of these machines, and on the corded version it tapers down slightly so that when you're holding it, your arm's at more of an angle. So by having it straight, it forces your arm up a little bit more, or forces you perhaps to go like that a little bit more, but it's not really that much of a problem. And I don't think, you know, I'm looking for ways to criticise the ergonomics, but if they'd tried to kind of taper this down, the net result might be that the battery is going to be closer to the panel, which you probably don't want. So all in all, I think the way they've designed this is pretty damn good, and the ergonomics are lovely. I mean, you can see it's a really nice looking tool, and I know you haven't got it in your hands, but I've got it in my hands here, and I've used it, and it is a really nice tool to hold and operate. And we'll talk about the balance a little bit later on. And pretty much these tools are so similar. As you can see, the Rotary is a little bit longer, but from the handle kind of design is virtually identical on them. So the ergonomics of using them are pretty much exactly the same, guys. Very, very, very nice, and not much that I can criticise them on. Right, this next section of the video, guys, is all the important stuff, the observations and comments on these tools. So listen to this bit if you've not listened to any of the other stuff. This is the important stuff as far as I'm concerned. Number one, the The XFE 150 comes with 150mm and 125mm plate, as I said. The PE only comes with 150mm plate. I'd have liked for it to have come as standard in that particular standard package with the batteries. With the 125mm plates, you can use it with 140mm or 5.5-inch pads, because they're just my preference in pads, and it would just be nice. Second thing, both these machines are now using brushless motors, so it's one less thing for you to service on the tools. So I think the tools are generally going to go this way at some point, and that's a real good positive. Another observation, the XFE15 150 is using a fixed weight counter system. A handful of the tools, when I reviewed like the new to market corded XFE version of this tool, it had a ball bearing counterweight system. A handful of them went out with that ball bearing counterweight system, but Flex have now moved over to a fixed counterweight system. They probably think it's better. I don't know the ins and outs of that. What I can say is this tool does seem to be smoother and less vibration than that corded one that I got my hands on. Not just perhaps because of the lower operating top speed, it just seems a bit smoother. So that's something that's important to mention. There are also some other little differences around the shroud design, I believe, but the net result is a smoother tool than the one that I reviewed on the channel back in the day. A very important piece of information: Flex communicate to their customers that these batteries that they sell are good for 700 charge cycles. A very important piece of information. Batteries don't last forever. You're putting charge in, taking charge out, putting charge in, and they have a shelf life. Like I've said, 95 quid for the large batteries, 64 for the or 65 for the smaller ones. So after 700 charge cycles, you will need to potentially be replacing your batteries. Next consideration, with these corded tools, one thing I've noticed, and I've noticed it more with the PE14 Rotary, is the ability for pressure to lower the speed. And I'm trying to think back when I had the cordless PE14-2 Rotary. I can't remember me being able to slow the tool down at all. With these cordless tools, like I say, especially the Rotary, I can, with pressure, slow that tool down. Now, I don't tend to use pressure, and I'm generally not leaning in or tilting, although sometimes you might want to. You can't stop the tool or anything like that. It's got tons of torque, but probably something to do with the way the battery is actually managing that power, that it's harder to regulate it and compensate it. But you can, or I could observe that I can affect the speed with pressure. Less noticeable on the long throw machine because of the free spinning nature of it, and the fact you tend to not be tilting or using angles or anything like that. So more of a consideration with the Rotary. Cool feature of these tools, next point, is the battery power life. Just a very simple system when you're using them. You just press that and it tells you it's got 4 bars for maximum power, 1 bar for minimum. And I believe when it's down critically low on power, I think the 1 bar flashes. So it's a nice little way of you being able to determine how much battery charge life you've got in there. Like I say, when you put the battery on the charger, it gives you a countdown in minutes on how long it's going to take to recharge. Next point, again, is very, very important one, guys, and it's one thing that's slightly different with these tools. The speed ranges of them are compressed from their corded counterparts. Now, the XFE, roughly, if you convert the Flex's stated OPM down to what all the other guys use, you halve it. So it's 2,300 OPM to 3,800 OPM no load speed. The lower limit of 2,300, it's not a problem that doesn't go as slow as some of the others. You're really using that speed just to spread your polish out and give you a nice little film, and then you kind of crank up to your working speed. But it's fair to say on those the top end of the corded version of this is 4,500, and the Rupes LHR 15 Mark II equivalent was 5,300, I believe. Those other corded tools, you wouldn't typically use them at top speed because that top speed can dry out the abrasives. So you'd step them back, but the thing to consider is you will be using, perhaps if you want to be consistent with how you are using those other tools, you might be using this closer to top speed than the other one. The Rotary, we have a minimum speed of 900 RPM and a top speed of 1450. Compare that with the corded version. I believe it was 600 low speed on full trigger lock 1, if you like, and the top speed of 2100. Are there scenarios where you might want to go above 1450? Potentially yes, although I don't typically do it. Are there scenarios where you might want the capability to go slower than 900? Well, I thought yes, because sometimes I like to, you know, utilise the fact, I like to run the machines perhaps sometimes between 600 and 800 for various things. Saying that, when you've got this running at speed 1, 900 RPM, it doesn't feel particularly fast on the panel. So, but on paper I'd have liked that to have been slightly lower perhaps. But it's a very important point in this video. You have smaller operating speed windows on these tools, and I'm almost certain, although I'm guessing, that is something to do with efficiency of the battery, that perhaps when you start cranking this up to feed it at 2100 RPM, you might drain the battery way too quickly or something like that. So be aware of the speed ranges of these machines. Another consideration with both of these machines compared to their corded counterparts, so the XFE1550, the large long throw machine, has a little mini XFE 7-12 corded version, and the PE150 or whatever has a little mini compact rotary that you could pair with it, the PE8-4. There are no battery powered mini equivalents that you can pair up with these tools, and that's a consideration. So if you did want to pair up, you'd need to pair up a corded version with a cordless version. So I don't know if that's going to come, or if that's ultra mega niche to generate these mini polishers. And I don't know if the mini polishers, it will work putting a big battery on the back of them. I'm not sure, but I thought I'd mention that because it might be important to some people to be able to pair them up. The next consideration, guys, again, it's around ergonomics. That these block batteries, obviously they're quite big and they go on the end of the tool, which is, you know, the only place you're going to be able to put them. Ergonomically, they're not perfect, so it's not like a 10 out of 10, 100% mark, because you've got this kind of battery on the end. For it to be perfect, it would have to be some kind of slimline battery that you could put into the handle so that you didn't have this kind of big block on the end. Now, this is a kind of minor point because of the following reasons. One, the biggest positive about the way that Flex have done it is it's compatible with our existing battery system. So if you've already got Flex power tools, their drills and all that sort of stuff, you've already got the batteries. And if they didn't make it compatible, you know, you'd have a lot of people moaning saying, I've got to go and buy these new special batteries. So they probably had to do it this way, and the development cost of making specific batteries for a very niche tool would have been very high. And they probably, if you had to get them slimline batteries into this handle, they probably wouldn't have given you the capability of these kind of big block batteries. So I'm not going to go mad on that, but the net result is you have a big kind of battery block on the end of the kind of tool. The next consideration, guys, and I just want to keep this one very simple, is the cost. For you to go and buy this tool, you know, you're looking perhaps with discounts and stuff, maybe around 550 to 600 in that kit with all the batteries in there. That's quite a lot of money, okay? Now, lithium power, cordless power tools cost a lot of money generally. I remember buying an SDS drill, Bosch one, probably about 10 years ago, and I paid about 500 quid for that, and I think it might have come with 2 batteries, I can't remember. So they generally are a little bit more expensive. The cost of the batteries is what you're paying for. These batteries are about £100 each. You get 2 of them in the kit, and you get the charger, which is 60 quid. So you're paying 260 quid on top. If you think the cordless Flex, I think, is around 300 quid, something a bit more, you suddenly add that 260, and then that's where you are. But you also get the nice hard case. So price wise, it is what it is, but I just want to keep it quite simple in this video. If you want the cordless version, you're going to have to pay for it, and after 700 charge cycles on the batteries, you're going to potentially have to replace those, and that's a real cost. Next one, very important, what a lot of people are going to ask about is when you're using this tool, what is the sort of fatigue effect of having this cordless kind of battery on the end of the handle. Well, as I've said before, the overall weight of the tool is very light. I cannot see anyone developing a full size, a full power capability rotary that's going to get the weight with a 5-volt battery. That's going to get the weight below 2.84 kilos. I just can't see them. And if they do manage to beat it, they might be able to beat it by a couple of points of a kilo. You know, it's about as light as you're going to get. But what is the effect of having that weight there? You know, you having to kind of balance that. Well, for me, I didn't really find it any sort of problem. It's no problem at all when you're vertical. There's just no difference. You're just bearing the whole weight of the tool in your arms, and it's not a heavy tool. When you're horizontal and you've got the most of the weight taken up, you know, on the plate, and you're just balancing it, you can notice it, but it doesn't really seem to be that much of a problem. Like Ian from UK Detailing said when he reviewed it, perhaps when you're doing the roof and you're right in the middle of the roof and you've got your arms at full stretch, and I can feel it right now, that extra weight will come into play. Wasn't that much of a factor for me. In fact, it was less of a factor than I thought it was going to be. If it's a factor for you, you can drop down to these batteries, which are, you know, about half the weight. So you do have an option there, but it's less of a problem. And I would probably look to use this with the 5-volt batteries personally, because it's just less juggling of the batteries. So balance generally for me was okay. There are no heating issues with this tool. The cooling on them seems to be fantastic. Now they'll warm up. There's a lot of energy going through them, but they get to a point after a couple of minutes where they warm up and they just seem to stay there. They never get roasting hot or anything like that, even when I've run them through their whole kind of charge cycle. So the cooling on them is really good, and that's consistent with what I've seen from most of the Flex tools, apart from perhaps the old lady, the force rotation with a metal shroud. That can get a bit toasty, but that's an older design, isn't it? The next consideration is, I don't know if this is technically possible, guys, but remember the little Rupes Mini Nano Hybrid tool? That had 2 batteries with it, and it also had a corded adapter that you could plug into the cordless tool, so you had permanent power. I thought if that capability is possible, Flex could add that. You could actually turn this into a corded version, which is one less reason if you're looking at this and comparing it with the corded and thinking, oh, I might want this. Having a capability to make it like the corded is a good little trick. I'm just not sure, you know, it's easy for me to say, oh, that'd be a nice trick. You've missed a trick there, boys. But I don't know if that's possible, you know, the technical side behind it. If they were able to do it, I'm sure the cool thing is that it wouldn't need all the weight of this battery, so it could just be like a little lighter adapter block, and you could have a very light tool there. So I don't know, maybe if it is possible, maybe it's something Flex could look at doing later on and selling it separately. But it'd be great to be able to turn these into a corded version as well, just with a little kind of adapter thing. Next consideration, guys, and this is a question. I was checking the specs on these, and the machines, although they have microprocessor control, and I think Flex have called it something slightly different, some control system in them, I couldn't see any mention of a Tacho speed monitoring. So the corded versions monitor the speed and adjust, so if you slow the speed down like on the Rotary, it will compensate and try and keep that speed up. Couldn't see the Tacho listed in the specs of the machines, and the fact that I can slow that machine down with pressure a little bit, not anything to panic about, but you can do it, maybe suggests there isn't a Tacho. So let me know in the comments whether you know anything about that. Again, it could be a power efficiency thing, that if there's another overhead on the power, if it's got to monitor the speed and keep feeding more power to compensate something, it might ruin the efficiency and the working time. So I don't know, but I just noticed that when I was doing the research, that there was no Tacho or constant speed system listed on the tools. Next thing, guys, is a recommendation on what battery systems you should look to use at. You know, because you've got 2 different batteries. How many of these do you get? Or do you get this one? What I would say is, the crunch test I wanted to see is with the 5-volt battery, I could run it round robin with 2 of these, and I can easily. So it'd be very unlikely, or just not possible from what I've seen, that I could take the power out of the battery, put this one on charge, use the next battery, and then drain that one before that one is fully charged. Because you're stopping, you know, you work it for a while and you stop and you wipe down and stuff like that, and you clean your pads. So the main thing is, really, the minimum you need is 2 of these batteries to make it function. With these, because the charge time I measured at about 38 minutes and the running time a little bit less, it could be a scenario when potentially you might want to look at getting 3 of these, which will be roughly the same cost as having 2 of these. So if you opted for these, you do a little bit more battery juggling. You might need 3 to make sure that you've got the ability to always have one that's charged. A good little compromise might be, if you're worried about the weight of these sometimes, is to have 2 of these batteries, and that's what it comes with, and just buy 1 of these in case you're ever doing bits where you're stretching out and you're finding it harder to balance the battery. So you can make use of the lightweight one, and it will also serve as a kind of extra kind of you know, battery in case you ever need it. So it's even less likely that you're going to ever find yourself in a situation where you don't have a battery with power in it. So that would be my suggestion: 2 of the 5 amp and 1 of the 2.5 amp, but that personal preference comes into that. So overall, guys, that is my review of these cordless versions of the tools. I've really tried to go into all the considerations and details with this and pick up. I didn't want to leave any stone uncovered and someone saying, well, you haven't mentioned it does this. I wanted to cover everything. Everything that struck me as a little bit different or a little bit unusual, I wanted to delve in there. So there's lots of little points here. The one thing that I want to get across is that when you throw the notebook out the window and just get the pads on this thing and start using it, the tools are really, really nice to use. And the battery, you know, that battery, which is a heavy thing on the end of the handle, was less intrusive than you would think it would be from looking at this battery. Perhaps down to the fact that Flex have got the overall weights of these tools right down, about as low as you're ever going to get for these machines. So a lot of credit to them for that. These are pretty good tools, and all of the things that I've spotted and issues around them I've raised and covered in the videos. None of them are showstoppers, but they are considerations. A lot of the guys watching this at home, it'll be guys that, you know, that might want to polish their car once a year and have a sort of dual action sitting on the shelf. Well, it's fair to say these tools are perhaps a little bit more specialised, more perhaps for the trade than the guys at home. Although saying that, there are some guys that will spend the money on these and value them, and, you know, will buy them. So that it's not completely for the trade, but more aimed at the trade, and specifically the mobile detailers and the smart repair guys. Like I have said, very good tools, guys. If you've had a chance to use them, let me know in the comments your thoughts about them. Let me know about this review in general, if you thought it was a load of old rubbish or you thought it was half decent or whatever. Like I say, I try to make it meaningful and cover all of the points, and I've just about gone through everything I had there in my notes. So I hope that was useful for you guys. Tons of stuff to come on the Forensics Detailing channel. Too many videos to list, and my brain is in full cordless mode, so I can't remember what those videos are, but they will be churning out, as always, one a week or something like that. So stay tuned, take care, enjoy the summer, and I'll see you soon on the Forensics Detailing channel. Bye for now.